Welcome to the podcast, everybody. I can tell you it's definitely winter here still in Nebraska. I know because as I look out the window, it's still snowing. And that means here at the department, we're in full winter operations mode. Remember that your safety is our business, and that means be prepared when you leave the house and take your time when winter weather strikes. Watch the weather and plan your travel. You can know before you go by checking 511 either through our mobile app or through 511.nebraska.gov, where you can always find the most up-to-date road conditions. Travel safe, and let's get where we need to go this winter. We've been focused on partnerships with the podcast this year. It's been great to sit down with some of our external partners to talk about how our work coincides and helps us accomplish our goals. This week, we're talking to Katie Wilson from the Associate General Contractors, or as we lovingly refer to them as AGC, here in Lincoln. So Katie leads the group of contractors who really are the folks who are out there building our construction projects. And they've been a long partner of us here at the DOT, as you might expect. And maintaining the relationship with the contractors is very important because it helps us to be more efficient as we do our work. We want to be easy to do business with here at the department. And so the partnership, the relationship with AGC helps us to make sure that we're serving the contractors just as they are serving us as we complete our highway projects. And so it's a real pleasure to have Katie on the podcast and give you a little insight on how that partnership works. So with that, let's get to the conversation with Katie. I'm joined today on the podcast. Katie, welcome.
Hi, Kyle.
Katie Wilson.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's great to have you. One of our most important partners here at the department with the AGC.
We like to think we are.
And so tell me a little bit about your title, who the AGC is.
I am the Executive Director of the Associated General Contractors of America, Nebraska chapter. AGC Nebraska.
Okay.
That's a short
One chapter
term.
of 50.
One chapter of about, I think, 89. So there are charter members throughout the country. Our home office is in D.C., obviously. And there's 2 in Nebraska. So we're the heavy highway chapter, and then there's the building chapter.
Oh, I see. So the vertical building construction,
Separate.
who I wouldn't know or have much of a need to know.
No, probably not. Texas has like 16 chapters.
Oh, no kidding.
1 highway, and then the rest are vertical.
And they're regional, yeah, just because of the size of the state.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many vertical
Sure.
companies. So.
Okay, good. So how did you get here? You started a career in construction, if I remember.
I graduated from University, Nebraska in '87 with an accounting degree, and I went to work for Beatrice Construction, which was a bridge company that did bridges.
Did you have any history with construction, or you were just looking to get into accounting?
No, I knew the owner, really good friend of my family's, and my dad was a bonding insurance guy, you know.
So you were tangentially sort of.
Well, I went golf first.
Oh, that's
right. Do the golf thing for 2 years.
I have golfed with you. You are a salty golfer.
And I realized $13,000 a year was not going to get me where I needed to be.
So you tried the pro circuit.
I did. The local. So I was teaching, I was a teacher, that sort of thing. Did that. And then 2 years after that, Charlie came to me and said, my accountant's retiring. How about come work? And I said, okay. And I'd kind of worked for him in the summer, knew a little bit about it, and it always intrigued me. You know, I thought about going the CPA route, and that just wasn't for me.
What is that? Is it because the test is hard?
No, just, I don't know. You really have to start, and I wanted to do a lot of things. I wanted to, I don't know, it wasn't me. So I went over and worked there, and he taught me, and Peggy Shalla, who now, she's the owner of All Road Barricades. I worked there a couple years, then Charlie sold out. Peggy came up and bought All Road Barricades. A year later, I went to work for her. 22 and a half years later, decided, do I want to be here for 25 more years, or do we want to, you know, so I came here, had an opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now your role is very different. Instead of
Very
working on
different.
bids and working on estimates and payroll.
Financials.
Yeah. Now you're zoomed way out.
Now, there is a similarity. So at All Roads, I was on the board of AGC, and I chaired the traffic control committee with a number of other members. So I knew about the relationship.
Yeah. So you had a vision for what the AGC could be.
A little bit, you know. I advocated, I felt, for the industry as we did the committees, and met a lot of people here.
Yeah.
That was a good thing to do. And so it just kind of...
Yeah, so you had been advocating for the industry through those partnerships, through those relationships, but now here you are zoomed way out, looking at all the firms, trying to represent them all.
So now it's 70 contractor
70
members.
contractors, how many you have?
115 associate members. Now instead of focusing traffic or whatever, it's everything. It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah, has it been challenging and fun?
Very
Everything you want in a new job?
Fun, frustrating at times, no doubt. It's slower. It's a slow process. Well, you know that.
I think being a director of an association is challenging work. You've got a board of directors. How many people are on your board?
17.
Yeah, and I know most of them, and they're great folks. But when you got 17 folks and opinions, that can be a difficult job for an executive director.
Yep. First thing I did when I came is said, we need to have a strategy just for us in the office. So we did that. You know, Chris Hawkins was our president at the time, and we worked through that whole process and said, these are our strategic priorities. Well, we're going to do that again this year, 5 years later. It's needed because we need to keep everybody focused on this instead of this.
And that's difficult when you have a lot of members. There's a lot of issues. They're all very real, but you can't do everything, so you have to kind of focus.
There's not enough time.
Yeah, there isn't. I've
Well,
learned
you
that.
know that.
I've learned that. You know, it's one of the things they tell you when you take on a job like this or like yours is that you can't do too much. And you think to yourself, I would never do that. As you go along, you keep turning over a rock and you think, yeah, we should do this. Pretty soon, you've got too many irons in the fire, and it's a huge challenge.
And that's happened a lot.
It's happened to us here, and I know our team has been very, very good at trying to fulfill all the things we're trying to accomplish. But we have pulled the reins in terms of new stuff and just try to focus on the things that we're working on, prioritize those. There's still a list of things that we talk about in terms of down the road, but you know, sort of waterfalling, getting one done and then moving on to the next one.
You know, one of the things I think for contractors in our industry is that historically we've always been very reactive to things. What happened on this job? We got to fix it, whatever. This new law or this new tax law or whatever it is, reactive. We've really tried to be proactive and get information out and this is coming up, whatever.
Well, you know, I think that we play a role in that at the DOT because if the culture of our relationship or our organization is one in which we push things out to you and expect you to react to them, then that's the only way you can operate. If instead, as one of your partners, we're working together to think about where our challenges are and where we have opportunities, then it allows you to be more proactive. I think that's a focus we're trying to have more of. I think it's something that some of your members are glad to have. I think in other times because they're not maybe as used to having that role, they don't get it as involved as I would like to see until the rubber hits the road and then the phone starts ringing. Growing together to think about these issues, and because they take time and they take energy, and people are trying to work every day. And so trying to think about where we need to go and to put your phone down and concentrate on a new statute idea or a policy idea or a reg, that's difficult.
You got to work through issues, and AGC and DOT, we work together on a lot of specs and things like that. And it's a group. All 300 of us can't do it, you know? So you get this group, you work on it, and it comes out. It's not going to be perfect for everybody, right? And then you tweak it.
Because not every view is represented. Or some of the folks maybe that weren't represented have an opinion about something that maybe was discussed and fleshed out and for whatever reason went another way, but they weren't able to be a part of it. So how do you bring those folks along?
And that's why you got to keep working through it. And you just, as long as our communication is open and we can tweak things and review them and make them better. Well, and if we can't do that, then we will struggle, right?
And that's what we want. We want to move forward as an industry. I use the words modernize our business, and I don't mean that we're ancient. I mean that in these times, we have to be looking forward and trying to find ways to do things better, faster, cheaper, and look around and bring some of the new business practices that are working in other states to Nebraska. Well, to do that, we can't do it alone because a lot of times it impacts the construction industry. It impacts how you bid. It impacts how you estimate. It impacts your workforce. We need to know those impacts before we go ahead because ultimately it impacts bids. And we need to keep the bids low. That's how we answer to our taxpayers. So we got to engage you along the way.
And we have to come to the table. We have to be there and work through it and know that it's not going to always be perfect for everybody. And when you have 70 contractor members from $300,000 a year all the way up to millions, and the little guys are just as important as the big guys, you know, and that's where AGC, I feel, is important, that we can represent everybody. Those big guys, gals, aren't going to have all the say. Everybody has to be working together to make sure it's right for everybody.
Well, and we've been trying to use data more in our analysis to figure out how we can be better partners, but how we can get more bids. We want people to bid. When people bid, we see better prices. And so we don't make it easy for you. We want whatever that means. And so we've used some data analytics to look at some things, but we haven't just made decisions based on those. We try to reach out with the results, lots of conversations with you and your members to say, what would make it easier for you? I know, just as an example, how much time you have to bid. Preparing a bid takes time. Do we have the right amount of time? Do we have the right number of bids in an individual letting? Those kinds of things. We can talk about it, we sort of know it intuitively, but then backing it up with data and more conversations helps us to try to balance those lettings to make it easier for you.
the industry evolved. So back 10, 15 years ago when stimulus came and it was all asphalt overlay, which was great for some of the members, right? We did a lot of it. We did a lot of the traffic control for it. We did a lot of the striping and all that. Well, now it's evolving. So you can't just maintain, right? So now we're doing a little more. You got to take care of the subgrade. You got to take care of the slopes. You got to take care of all that other stuff. So it's here
Let me stop you there. When you say we do a little more, I mean, the projects require a little more?
Well, in the mid 2000s,
oh, we didn't have that kind of work.
We just didn't have that kind of work out. You know, it wasn't shovel ready.
Oh, I see. So has our industry had to learn those skills again? Is that kind of what you mean?
Well, kind of. And when you have new managers, you have new people in the field, people have just had to learn. The guys my age and above, we were here in the 90s. We were doing that kind of work a lot. Kansas, my goodness, it was crazy down there. And then all of a sudden, stimulus put a halt on it. I don't know why, but that's where all the money was going, a lot of it. Now it's capital improvement. We're doing Build Nebraska Act, concrete. We're doing some of the bigger jobs, which all of a sudden some of the companies now are going, oh, we weren't doing that work. Now
so they weren't investing in the equipment and the people and the expertise and the training and all those things.
And so a lot of people left with the stimulus after the stimulus is over, and here we are. Now we're doing the multi-group jobs. You know, back then it was, you had group 10, you had group 9, which is asphalt, your miscellaneous, your traffic control, maybe a little grading, a little guardrail. That was it. Bridge now and then. And now we're doing them all. You know, we're doing a lot of environmental stuff. You know, you have erosion control. And so here we are again, the subs are so important, but everybody thinks, you know, the subs are just going to come in and build it and leave. Well, that's not necessary. You got to go with the phasing, and so everybody's learning. But then we got a lot of work, right? How big's the program this year? So it's evolving.
600 million, by the way, record investment.
Right. I was letting you say that, but you know that, and it changes. And people were here today. They don't want to think that 15 years ago it was so different. And new people came into the industry. A lot of people left because of the changes of the.
So is that just a healthy thing, a sign of whatever the times may be, or is that something as owners we need to be aware of and try to be a little more consistent?
I think DOT did a good job where they finally got the plans. They got work on the shelf. They got backlog of work where they didn't necessarily 15 years ago.
Well, I know
we didn't have the money probably, but
states addressed the stimulus differently at the time. I mean, it was money. It came fast. You had very short turnarounds. In Kansas, we were in a good situation, like we would be today, honestly, if things dropped for us here. Although we don't always have our big projects ready to go on the federal side. In Kansas, we had big economic generating projects ready to go on the shelf and through the NEPA process and ready to roll. And so we only had 5 stimulus projects with the state funds. And so where Nebraska was spreading it around all over the state, doing lots of preservation work that was probably desperately needed.
It was.
But it was also what they could get ready. We were on the totally opposite side where we were essentially just doing 5 Build Nebraska projects. And that had its own challenges because we had a lot of folks who wanted us to spend it in different parts of the state. Geographically, mayors and elected officials, they all wanted a piece of it, rightfully so. And then contractors, because they wanted to see more of an opportunity to win the work. And when you only have 5 jobs, you're limiting who gets a piece of that pie. We took some heat from the other side.
I was a part of that.
You were there? Yeah. Did you win any of the work?
We started not doing as much work in Kansas about that time.
Yeah.
Because they got so big and the traffic, just that whole, we did a lot of pavement markings back in the late 90s, talking all roads. I mean, we did a lot of work down there. We were probably 70% down there and 30 here. And then when that came, you know, you're thinking, great stimulus, and it was really towards the big, huge jobs, and that's not the direction we were going anymore. So.
Well, at the time, I mean, the stimulus was designed to try and support economic growth. Transportation projects do that. They do that in a couple of ways. One way is that they get people working today to build the project, and the suppliers and the economies around those projects. But they also, if they're the right kind of project, can support long-term economic growth with improving mobility, reducing congestion, making new connections, more access to business, those kinds of things. And I think that was part of our thinking in Kansas was, well, the intent of the legislation is not only to grow jobs today, but also to support economic growth long-term. That's the direction we went. Looking back on it, I don't know. It depends on where you are, what opportunities you have, what projects you have ready.
Yeah.
AGC, you know, you guys are trying to look ahead, much like we are in terms of the changes in the future. And we have a lot of common goals in terms of trying to get the transportation system built and support economic growth, and then individually to support our workforce and make sure that the future is bright for the companies and for the DOT. So workforce is something you and I talk a lot about. And is that what you think the biggest challenge is for your industry, for our industry?
I think it's been a challenge for 10 years. Like I said, we're reactive. So now it's hit. We used to do a construction event at the State Fair when it was in Lincoln. And I look back now and think, if we had kept doing that, where would we be? But
and was it designed to just generate interest in construction
and it was at
for
little
kids?
level. So those kids are now, you know, because I think my kids, they're 19 now, so they would have been 3-ish, 4-ish, something like that. Just think what they maybe would have been doing. Not to say they're doing the wrong thing, but I just think we should have. But I was on the other side at that time, and I was one of the volunteers who said, well, I'm not going to go to Grand Island for 10 days, you know. So we dropped it. But here we are. We are
and so that's one issue is finding the workers, finding people who want to do the work. And
that's one of the issues.
And it's a challenging problem because it's hard work. It can be long, long hours. And maybe folks in today's world, if they have a choice, that's not where they would first go in terms of being outside working long, long hours, being away from family.
I think a lot of the kids coming out of schools, they don't really know what the opportunities are out there. I think that's one of the problems. I think we have to change that. Everybody has to change that.
Yeah, we have to market it because it is a great career. It's a great opportunity.
And you can make some great money even at the entry level. If you want to show up to work, you want to learn, you want to ask questions, you might make mistakes, but learn from the mistakes. I'm a great advocate on that. Within a few years, you are going to be on your way doing something, starting your own business. We are short of all kinds of companies out there, right? Erosion control, seeding, all those, more bridges, whatever. I just think the options are not there, and we're not teaching that in school. Not that that's their job, but we need to be doing that. We need to market a lot better. So we are.
Well, and it's not just us. I mean, you know, workforce is a challenge all over Nebraska and beyond. Whether it's electricians or plumbers or, you know, the trades kind of group, the skill folks, it's a challenge for lots of people. And then we're competing with all those people as well.
So go back to the 80s when I graduated from high school. I took typing, I took shorthand, I took things like that. You don't even do shorthand anymore. And I don't know how to even check my oil in my car, right? My dad, go back another generation, he didn't know how to do it either. I mean, I tried to hook up my dryer last night, and I was cussing up a storm because I think I cut my finger. I didn't get it done. So I'm not drying my clothes now because we just moved. But I don't have those skills. I don't know how to do it, you know?
I needed to change the blinker the other day on my car. I've been driving around for like 3 weeks with the blinker not working, making everybody mad, getting the finger every time I turned in front of somebody.
I have to go somewhere because I don't even know where you go.
So I start to do it, and I got the instruction manual out, I got the bulb, and I had to take the dang tire off. That's how you gotta do it. I gotta jack my car up with my little bed jack, get the tire off. It took me an hour probably to get that bulb changed, and I thought, what am I doing?
Well, at least you did it.
I did do it. I did have quite a sense of accomplishment afterwards.
I'm proud of
my
you.
wife, she mocked me the entire time. What
you
are you
an
doing?
engineer.
What are you doing? I'm changing the bulb. You know that's the tire.
You know how to draw it up and make it work, but you don't know how to fix it.
Yeah, well, my dad is a contractor. He's on the home remodeling side. I mean, he is a force to be reckoned with, and I'm a huge disappointment to him in terms of my ability to compete with that.
I think now, you know, you get YouTube out.
Oh, yeah.
Like I've fixed dishwashers because I think I can do that.
I can do it, yeah.
It just takes time and patience,
Yeah.
which I don't have a whole lot. And my kids are just as bad.
Okay, so we've got the workforce, the entry level, the skilled folks, that's a challenge, but there's other challenges on the workforce side too in terms of leadership. How do we keep the contracting industry healthy?
Yeah, it's a huge issue for the owners of the world, of the DOTs, the cities, the counties, and it's contractors. Because at least on our side, the owners have been in the trenches. They don't just sit there at a desk with a tie on and, you know, manage here and there. They are physically out there. Some of them, 5:30 in the morning, they are out at the shop, dispatching trucks still. And they might be 70 plus.
Years old.
Yeah, and then others might be out jumping in equipment because we're, number one, short of people, but number two, that's just how they've done it forever. And so their kids or their managers that are 30, 40 years old, they weren't raised that way. So now where are we going to go as these guys and gals that are running these companies retire? A lot of them are just closing up shop, you know, let's just sell it. Let's just sell it and turn it over to some big conglomerate, which is great. We have a lot of those members, but it's, you don't know where we're going to be in 10 years.
Yeah.
And Agency of America, when I go to my conferences, we talk about that a lot.
Yeah, so how does AGC as the association support companies? And I mean, is it awareness? Is it education? Is it
planning? I don't think anybody wants to sell their company, but I think we do. We're all guilty. You just get busy. Spring comes, you get your work, you got to get it built. We're short of people. So now it comes winter, here we come again. Now that was always the time to get some of these things done. Well, all of a sudden, now you're getting work for next year. You know, you're taking a break. It's just a cycle. I don't know. So I hope AGC can start having that conversation with everybody. Plan, plan, plan. We've got plenty of members that can help them work through that. But unless they trust and change, you got to change a little bit, I feel. People aren't going to work 70 hours a week.
On one hand, we're challenging you and your members to find ways to get projects done faster, to get out of the public's way as quick as possible. We think that's so important. But we also know that the 70-hour work week that maybe the industry has depended on for years is not as palatable to people. And if you're trying to build your workforce, that may require a change. And that means you might be out on the road longer, which is not something that we want. So,
well, we can't find the people to do it. You know, they want to be home on the weekends. 5 years ago when I was still at All Roads, I mean, we'd find a really good person to work. And then 2 weeks into it, a month into it, they're like, well, gotta quit. Well, the girlfriend wants me home, or the boyfriend wants me home, or whatever it is. And they just don't want them gone overnight, or they have kids, and what do you do? So they can find a job here in town and not travel. It's tough.
That balance is important. I think that generations ago, work defined people maybe more than it does in today's world. A generation older than maybe I am, work was what you did, and that was what defined you.
Yep.
Now it's work, but it's also family. It's hobbies, it's religion, it's lots of things.
Bringing home the bacon is not top priority.
It's a top priority, but it's not the only one maybe anymore.
It's not.
I think that's healthy for people, you know, so I totally support that. I just think, you know, how do we still accomplish our goals?
Well, and how do we get people to change? So as you hire people, how do we bring them on board differently? You know, before you'd hire a body and it was like, go learn. And you learn as you go. And if you made a mistake, okay, we try to make sure it's not that big of one. But now you got to make sure that they know what they're doing, and so you want to keep them long term. You don't want them to come and go every 2 weeks.
Can I ask you about work zone safety of your folks? Is that something you guys talk a lot about?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, huge.
You know, it's something we're constantly trying to think of ways to raise awareness of the traveling public, to make sure our folks understand how to operate safely in a work zone. But, you know, I hear it when I'm out on the road talking to folks. They're worried. The distracted driving, they see it. It's not something that, you know, you just talk about. They actually are standing on the side of the road and see people driving by and not paying attention.
I've worked out there, and it's scary. I mean, in traffic control and you're doing pavement markings, you are, sometimes there's a cone, right? And they used to be drums. Well, then we had to narrow that down, so now it's cones and tall cones. And you are on this side, and there's the cone, and there's a car going 75 miles an hour, speeding, but going by you. And you just become oblivious to what's going on, right? It's scary. So here's the deal with work zone safety. It's costly. It's not cheap. It's not free. So there are a lot of things out there, I'm sure you know, that we can instill, but it's not going to be free. And it takes time to set them. They're more permanent, you know, like the concrete barriers. There's a lot of preventative things you can put at the beginning of the jobs to slow people down and that sort of thing. They're costly. But a life, you got to weigh that. So
certainly where it makes sense to get a more concrete barrier, I mean, literally, is a good idea.
It really is. And it's a peace of mind for everybody out there. Instead of the cones, you know, if you're going to be there a week or 2 or 3, put them down. I mean, I know our traffic control committee is looking into doing some things on safety, and especially on the interstate and expressways where coming into those work zones, people are flying around each other trying to get ahead of that truck or whatever. I mean, it's scary. Flagging. Scary. How many flaggers do we lose, you know? Well, I don't know if we lost any this year.
The flagging operation, it requires such attention, yet it's such a long day. And I could see it, just like you were talking about with the cones, you kind of just get into a rhythm of it.
Yeah. So there's a lot of advance warning. So you have road work 2 miles, you have road work next 10 miles, all that stuff. So you have reduced speed, speed limits, flagger ahead, all those. Be prepared to stop. What is everybody doing? Are they not reading these? Do we need to change the color? I don't know.
I think that there's opportunity in the vehicles with the connectivity and the autonomy that's coming. And I'm not talking about a fully self-driving car. I'm talking about ability for us to communicate to the vehicle that can communicate to the driver, that can keep them aware as they enter into a work zone. I think those are real things that are not far away.
Wouldn't be that difficult, really.
It wouldn't. There's opportunities to really, if you focus on work zone safety, to make that a big part of the implementation of it, and something that we need to be prepared to invest in when it gets here.
I think our traffic joint committee is already talking about that. And that's where we, as leaders, need to instill down to those joint committees to where they can be innovative and think new ideas instead of, it's going to cost. Let's think, and if down the road we say it's too costly, we're going to do something else. But I think there's people that want to think that way. We need to be open to allow that.
Yeah. Colorado has a self-driving attenuator, is that what it's called? The thing that drives behind the work zone that has the crash
attenuator.
Yeah, they've got a self-driving one that connects remotely to the vehicle in front of it and just stays right behind it. So you don't have to have someone sitting in there.
Here's just a quick funny.
Yeah.
So when those crash attenuator trucks came out, how many years ago now? I want to think it's like 7 years ago, but it's probably 15 plus. So we bought one at All Roads. Got a big truck and we had it put on the back, and we're down in Kansas on I-70. Well, I'm not kidding you. It was on the road for 2 days.
Got hit.
Got hit.
Which
Nobody
is what
died.
it's supposed to do.
It was great.
Yeah.
But it was like, really?
Yeah, you've got a thing that's designed to be hit that in some ways you're frustrated when it gets hit.
And it gets hit, but now we didn't have one.
Yeah.
Because it took so long. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, that's good. I wanted to ask you about messaging with the public. You know, I think that one of the biggest challenges we have is when we impact people the most is when we're impacting their commute, where they're trying to get, and our construction work zones. You know, we're trying to minimize those as much as is realistic and thinking about safety, but also it's just communicating to people, hey, there's a work zone here. So you can be prepared, you can know ahead of time. We've started implementing, as an example, one of the countdowns at the bridges when we're down to one lane. So when you pull up, you know, oh, it's 3 minutes. I can relax.
Yeah. Get on your phone.
I don't have to, well, as long as you put it down as soon as it turns green. But the idea of just sharing information, it helps people just calm down. It's going to be a couple minutes. And we've found that people appreciate that. And you see that in Kansas City with the smart corridors, and they've got how long to the airport. If you know how long it's going to be, just because there's a little bit of traffic, you can just plan and relax. But getting that information to the people in the car when they need it is hard. You can open up a Twitter account for the DOT, but now you're getting tweets from all over the state. So trying to find a way to target the people to get the message when they need it, when we need them to hear it, that's the challenge.
Yeah.
And do it in a safe way. And a connected vehicle maybe is the future of that, but I've often wondered if there isn't more we can do in partnership with our contractors to make it even part of the contract. We're going to communicate daily, hourly, what's changing, what you need to know. Not oversaturate, but
well, I think first, and I think you guys
too.
are doing that now, and then like Lincoln is doing it, Omaha's doing it. Prior to a job, let people know. You know, you go the same route every day to work, or home every day, or to
so you put up the
whatever.
thing ahead of time, yeah.
So you make sure that message board is up, the DMS, whatever, and say this is happening. You know, the lane closure. The worst is when you're all planned on it, and then it doesn't happen, and then that's where we always hear, oh, you know, you contractors just can't get anything done on time, whatever. Well, little did they know that the plant broke down, or it rained last night. Well, guess what? It's wet, so now we can't work today, so the lane closures aren't going to happen. So those are the things that you can't plan for.
Well, and there's nuance in the message, I think. You know, we got these message boards. They have a very limited amount of information you can get to people. They're driving. But there's nuance. Well, the reason we're not here is because the concrete has to cure for 8 days. I mean, how do you...
Educate.
Yeah, it's hard to get that message out, but I just think we need to keep trying.
And I don't know if you've done much reading on our little social media campaign this year. So it's called Better Roads Nebraska. And all we're doing is educating, because we think on our side is let's educate on what we do. We want to build the safest roads and bridges and infrastructure in the state, right? We don't want to lose money doing it. That's kind of a kicker for us. We're not a public entity.
Well, I don't want to lose money either, by the way.
Right. Well, you know, you hope not, right? So we did this social media campaign. As long as I've been involved in AGC, we have talked about educating the state. Kansas did it back early 90s, did a great job, went around. You guys kind of did it with your meetings, with the projects. On our side, we'd rather educate on, you know, you have this money, this is what we're going to do with it. And we're going to try to build these jobs as efficiently as possible. Because if we don't, guess what? We don't make money, right?
Well, and I understand that. I mean, we have a joint goal here, because the quicker you can get done, the quicker you can get to the next job and get going. And so we have an advantage there. I think that sometimes there's opportunity to incentivize things or provide the flexibility, but we have things we need to accomplish as well.
Yeah,
so.
and incentivizing is good. The tough thing is when we have the amount of contractors we have, which is not a huge amount for the money that we have coming into the state. You have one job, then you're just going to focus on that one. Well, then what happens to some of the others? You got to kind of pick and choose that, I think, because contractors don't want to lose money. If they have a job over here that's doing great And then all of a sudden over here, there's something that comes up that they didn't expect, DOT, everybody. So now you have to get over there and make sure you deal with that. Well, you might pull people from the good job.
All of a sudden you lose the other one
Yeah,
too.
so I mean, it's not a perfect world. Everybody wishes it was a perfect world, right? It's not.
Well,
So
I know
a
on
lot of it's
our side,
underground.
we've got the contracts that we try to hold each other to. In that example, if a contractor is about to face penalties over here because of something, and so they're rushing over to
Right.
fix it, only to put penalties at risk on the other job,
Right.
we have to treat each job individually, but also as the owner understand the larger challenge and just be understanding while at the same time holding everybody accountable. So
Yeah.
it's that sort of common sense approach to it. Trying to be realistic, but making sure that if a contractor couldn't deliver what they said they were going to deliver, that
Oh, absolutely.
that we have to hold them accountable to that.
Yep. We've got asphalt guys, we've got bridge guys. Not everybody does everything. Part of our social media is to make sure everybody understands that a contractor can't do it all. And they usually have a traffic control company, you have a guardrail company, you have a utility, underground, all that stuff. That takes a lot of time. We don't know what's under there. You have your bridge, you have a lot of operators, which we lack people. That's
Yeah.
a big one, for sure.
Katie, let me ask you this question, and I need you to be truthful.
I'm always truthful.
I know, that's why it's funny to say.
That's why you're a little
little
fearful.
too truthful sometimes, maybe.
Well, I'm kind of direct.
Yes, you are. That's what we like about you. You've worked with the DOT for a long time. Where do we have opportunities at the DOT to serve you and the industry better?
Listen, we need to listen too. I feel that over the next 5-10 years, we all have a lot of changes coming our way. We can't always be focused on yesterday. Let's look at how we can get to 5 years. We're not going to get back the workforce we had 10 years ago. It's just not going to happen on both sides. You guys have issues too, right? We're going to have a lot of people retire. We hope that we keep these companies going. You guys are having a lot of people retired now, and they're going to continue. We need to listen to each other, work together, communicate, and not always be conflict with each other. You know what I mean?
Well, the listening part, that's easy to say. It can be hard to do. And,
It's very hard.
on both sides. And if you think to an earlier time and our relationship is strong, I think we're working very well together. And I would say that about a lot of our partners. But in a past generation, maybe the DOT's approach was more, we will tell you what we need from you, and if you want to do business with us, that's what you have to do. And that worked well. And we've moved into a phase where we need to be thinking about the relationship differently. The first step in that is to be proactive and to communicate ahead of time. But there's more to it. It can't just be, here's what we're going to do, please send us your
Right.
comments. We need to be able to understand each other's mission and the roles we play and collectively set ourselves on a course that can accomplish the things together. And it's not just with your industry. I think it's with the public. I think it's on projects. I think it's in design. I think it's with the Army Corps of Engineers, with Federal Highway, economic opportunities. I think all things have to be approached that way. And I don't think that government as a whole in general has traditionally been very good at that. It's not something that's necessarily incentivized in any way other than trying to understand how we can better serve our communities. But it's something that we are moving more and more towards. And the biggest piece of it is listening. It's trying to understand where other folks are coming from and see from their point of view and incorporate it into your work. And do it in a way that doesn't put the taxpayer at risk, that doesn't put safety at risk, but that hopefully you can accomplish goals together.
I'm not an engineer. I don't understand all the engineering teachings at the university, but we met with Dan Lenzel.
Sure, yeah.
And it's interesting.
Yeah, he's the
you
civil
know,
engineering
yeah,
department
and
chair, and he actually is just recently promoted. But
Right. They're teaching engineering to these future kids, How do they really apply what they're learning, right? So then we come to our side. So we've got a lot of knowledge in the field from my guys and my girls. They aren't engineers necessarily, but they're managers. They know how to build something. They know how to do that, So I think it's important that we all learn from each other.
get those things together.
And
yeah.
listen, that's what, listen, learn, let's move forward instead of coming up with new concepts over here and leaving these people behind. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's great concepts happening in the field, but not necessarily the owners or whatever listening to that either.
Yeah.
So we all, consultants,
Yeah.
everybody needs to get together.
Well, it takes time and it takes a steady commitment to do it. But if we're going to be successful, if we're going to be more successful, it's something that we can do.
Totally agree.
Katie, thank you for coming. It's been great to have you.
Yeah.
We'll keep
It's
going
been fun.
and appreciate
Yeah.
all that you do for the state and for the department and for your
Well, we
industry. It's very
support
important.
the things you're trying to do. You know that.
I do. Thank you. So that's my conversation with Katie. I hope you enjoyed it. You know, the AGC is such an important partner, and our separate and distinct roles really do complement each other, and together we can do great work that supports the citizens of Nebraska. So thanks for listening, and remember, drive safe and buckle up.